Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Carl. I'm a Bob Ross certified painting instructor. I'm going to do two videos for a painting, and the first video is going to be some gesso prep. So we're going to spend some time kind of shaping our scene using the different gessos. You certainly could use acrylic paint. I would add, if you do use acrylic, to try to find acrylic paints that are matte in finish, that don't have a shine. But anyways, let's get started and let's have some fun. Up here I have a 16 by 20 canvas. I've covered it with a very thin coat of gray gesso, and the gray gesso is dry, but we'll be going back and forth with the different gessos to create our scene. I have some foam brushes. I can use some paper towels. I do have some just acrylic brushes that I have on hand. You can use whatever you have. I'm not using the Bob Ross brushes just because they're natural bristles, and I try to avoid water with those. So these are going to work to give us kind of the shaping we need for our underpainting. And we're going to go into a little bit of white. I can't tilt it too much or it'll run off the palette, but we're going to kind of just start shaping in a little bit of sky. There we go. And I'm just using a foam brush, and I don't mind some things happening here. So maybe just put some gray. And remember, with acrylic, it does dry a shade or two darker. Now, where there's lighter areas, when we put the oil paint, the color will show through more versus when we have just black gesso. Now, if you are having trouble with your paint or acrylic drying, you could, while you're doing this step, use a hairdryer. And I don't mind during this step that I'm going over some wet acrylic. There. I'm just mixing with the foam brush, and maybe we'll bring some of this white down a little bit. Maybe down here we'll have some water. And you'll see me as I'm doing this process. You know, make sure you step back and look at your pieces as you're working, just to kind of get the framing, make sure things look correct. And then you'll see me go back and forth with the different gessos, just to adjust values and things of that nature. But I like using the gessos because you can start shaping things with your painting. I'm going to switch to a different foam brush here, and I'm going to take some black gesso, and maybe we'll make a pile with some gray gesso. Just so it's not straight black gesso. And we'll start shaping in a little, where our mountain's going to live. Now the underpaint is starting to dry. I can see that. There. Just remember, there'll be oil paint on top of this. And you certainly do not have to do this much detail. If you notice, when Bob does the gesso paintings, most of them are very loose. But I do think this is a lot of fun to give this a try. Who knows, maybe something like that. And again, as you're working through this, if you dry the layers, if you want that, you know, using, like I said, using the hairdryer, I'm going to mix up a little bit of gray. Maybe kind of mix in that base of the mountain. Mixing with the gessos and acrylic is a little bit tougher, so you kind of have to work while it's wet if you want to create that softer look. So I just mixed gray into the black, and look, I've created a nice transition. And maybe right in here we'll just put, yeah, let's go a little bit less than that. I just want just some indications. This will kind of help me when I'm putting in my highlights later on. The cool thing about this is you're not committed. There. And it really helps you see values and tones. There. Look at that. Maybe bring in a little bit more white. So when you're doing your highlights with the oils, there we go. Ooh, that's fun right there. Look at that. And if it makes you happy, you could certainly just do a painting in black and white. Okay. I want these to be a hair darker than that. So maybe back here, there's going to be some distant trees. And again, it's amazing what you can do with this little foam brush. But certainly if you have brushes that you can, use for acrylics, use those. Yeah, maybe this comes up a little bit higher. I'm going to go a little darker up here. A little bit more of the black. There. One of the nice things with the black gesso, one of the nice things with the gessos is we can create things that some of this will come through the oil paint and create a lot of different details. Just using the foam brush vertically and just kind of creating that soft look. You can pull up. And again, we'll have some trees over there. Maybe reflections coming through. Now I'm going to take some gray. We're going to bring gray back in. And I'm going to kind of use these sweeping strokes. And I wanted to mix a little bit with the white that was on there. Starts to have that look of some water. And then back here, I want some of this to kind of come down. Again, this does not have to be perfect. Don't stress about that, because we can kind of control the oil paint when we add that later on. This is just kind of, I think this is more for a mental reference, and we can see values, and you're not committed. And who knows, maybe back in here there's just maybe there's a shoreline or something. Let's go a little bit darker than this last. And I'm gonna lay this in first. So maybe right in here. Yep, right there. We're gonna have kind of a layer of land. And I'm just scrubbing right now. I think what I'm going to do is start putting in some indications first, and then we'll go back in with some detail. There. Remember, don't get stressed about too much detail. We're really looking for just some indications. And we're going to have a little bit of fun. I'm actually using a brush right now. Just a flat brush. Just some treetops. Again, I'm not looking for a lot of detail. And make it a little darker. There we go. And remember, you don't have to put, when you go back with the oil paint, you really don't have to put too much on. And who knows, we could just use little like wisps. So you can just be a little looser with it. But I do see something that I'm going to add in with the foam brush. I don't need too much, but yeah, maybe here and there. In fact, I'm going to wipe it off a little bit. Let's pull just some indications of some reflections. There we go. Maybe there's a bigger one here. And I'm going to switch over to a different color here. This is a grayish color. Maybe we'll bring in some more water. Just pulling horizontally here. We'll create, maybe there's ripples and things. And the more detail you do add here, I think that can help as when you're doing your oil paint. Again, this probably won't show too much over here. This we'll have the water just coming through. Wow, look at that. That's kind of fun. Like Bob has said, that when you do painting, you should have fun. So however that happens for you, if you like this style, if you just want to only do acrylics or just do oils, just make sure you have a good time. The last thing I'm going to do is just add a little bit, just so I can see it, a little bit of white right there. And remember, as it dries, it'll start sticking quite a bit better, so just be aware of that. We'll probably have more white with the light coming through the middle here. I'm going to go into mostly black, and let's start shaping. Maybe this kind of comes down here. Just some land. I'm just scrubbing in some color. Yeah, there we go. Maybe a little bit. So mostly black, just scrubbing in here. And it's your world. You can shape it however you want to. And I'm just really just scrubbing in. You can pull. See that? If you pull, I'm sliding. And it'll still give you the indication of an evergreen tree. Just focusing on the center and just sliding out. Look at that. And I'm just back and forth. And I see something here. Why don't we put in a little gray? Maybe there's a little path that comes right through here. Maybe it comes right next to the trees. Let's give this tree a friend right here. Back and forth. Again, we're really just blocking in color. Just creating some wisps. And I'm going to go back into this foam brush. This is with I just have block gesso. And maybe we'll have some kind of layers to our path. And again, this is what I said when you can start shaping things. And maybe this one comes like this. And there's probably a bush here. Let's start. This is the black gesso. Yep, maybe we have just a bush. And I'm just going to put some grassy things. We don't know what they are. Maybe there's some more bushes. Just to change up the straight edge. Maybe there's a bigger one right there. Right on the shoreline. There, just shaping a little bit. And who knows, maybe we'll go back into some of this gray. And I'm using the brush. You could use the foam brush. And let's just put in just some things here. And I'm just kind of really just scrubbing in. Maybe there's some bushes or things. Again, we're just looking for some tones. Maybe this will help us when we're actually doing the real thing with oils. Let's come over here. Same thing, just putting in some color. Yeah, probably some things right there. That'll probably be in shadow. Again, you do not have to do this much detail with the underpainting. But like I said, it can really just create some additional details when this comes through the oil painting. And you know what? Let's bring in some white. We're kind of working up in some values here. Who knows? Maybe there's some bushes there. And again, we can change things when we get to the oil. But I like this where you're not committed, but you get an idea. Here we go. Oh, I like that. Just some fun. And again, this might be covered. We don't know. Just having a good time. Just getting in some undertones here. Just some basic values. Just kind of mixing it up. With that, I'm going to let the gesso dry. I would really encourage you to try out using gessos. You can shape your painting, work on values and tones, and you're not really fully committed. When you do go into the oil paint, I would let this dry for probably a few hours just to make sure it's completely dry. And this will be video 1, kind of that preparation. And then video 2 will be the oil painting process. And we'll see how this painting turns out. If you're looking for art supplies, you can check out my affiliate links in the description below. My website is carlvonartistry.com. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the content, please give it a like. Happy painting. See you next time.